Hi there, I'm AWAC.
I'm Gamadev.
And welcome back to our Let's Play video blogcast thing. We should really come up with a proper name for this or something.
Well, this is not even a Let's Play. This is a long play, and also because you're doing it.
Oh.
You're doing all the playing in here. So.
Hey, you were playing Soccer Kid last time.
Yeah. We'll have to do a versus one on this.
Oh dear,
like a return fire kind of thing.
Oh gosh. And I finally finished level 8 and have that queued up here on my laptop, which I will be playing for Gamadev, and so we can finally see Les's little admonition at the end.
This is, I guess, just to verify that you didn't use Game Guru to skip to the next level. Or
no. So we really did this honestly. So we'll key this in, and we'll see in a few moments.
So you never triggered any monster spawns on when you picked up the talisman, like just rush you from all corners of the room?
No, we actually considered there was some vestigial code for like landing on a tile and then doors nearby opening.
Yeah,
but that I couldn't make that work.
I've seen that though in Monster Hunter, where you'll go somewhere and the doors will open, right?
No.
Like in the very first level, I thought suddenly guys just... You hear a door open and then the guy comes towards you or something.
Nope. There is a door closing sound in the soundtrack, but I actually did try writing code so that there'd be like this tile, then you walked on the tile and it would trigger the nearby doors, either north, south, or east, west to open. The trouble is that it would get tripped twice. And so the door would go open, close. And I tried various forms of debouncing, and ultimately I couldn't make it work, and I'd already spent like 2 days on it. And I said, "No, I guess we're not doing this."
Okay. Are those guys all taking multiple shots, or are they just spitting at you?
I managed to shoot these guys before they started spitting at me.
Hey, so question on the gems: are the gems sprites actually those colors, or are they just tinted that?
They are actually those colors in the color map.
Interesting.
So here comes Les.
Catacombs should be thought of as refrigerators for the dead. Our bones have kept quite nicely, I think. Do pay your respects as you wander underground. Even in death, our residents can take offense and call on ghastly comrades.
Thank you, Les.
Is that hinting at the monsters you're going to get?
No, sometimes they hint, and sometimes they just...
It's so weird that that's Les's voice, because I can't put that voice to his face.
Really?
When I talk to him, yeah. Because, I'm used to... That's not his normal speaking voice, obviously. He's putting on his announcer voice. He's putting on his, what's his name? Thurles Ravenscroft or whatever that guy that used to do the Disney. He actually did the Haunted Mansion, and he's like, right. "You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch."
Yes, he was doing that.
Yeah,
but no, he's good. I actually tried reading for the narrator, and I wasn't nearly as good as he was. I tried doing it I tried doing it at a lower register.
Was Les already a voice actor at that point? Or?
I think so. I'd be surprised if he wasn't.
I mean, wouldn't have been doing video games before the 3DO, because how many video games there weren't even that many CD-ROM video games before the 3DO, so you would have to be doing it for cartoons.
To make you happy.
Okay. There you go.
I honestly don't know. He might have been doing voiceover. He might have been doing read voiceovers for TV or radio or something.
Because I mean, since he's from the Bay Area, so things like there's not as much work for TV and stuff in the Bay Area compared to that.
There used to be a respectful handful of radio stations. Of course, there's college radio around here.
Yeah, so. But that's not make a living doing that. But I'm just saying, where it's like if you got into video games, then it'd be a great niche, because it's like most video game production at the time. Right. Was, and it kind of still is in the Bay Area, so that's immediately build up a relay to look up on IMDb and see if he has any like TV credits before.
All right, so we are now starting level 9.
This is the catacomb.
This is the catacomb level. I don't remember who came up with the art idea for this. I want to think it's Kim, but yes, skulls everywhere.
It's like the mountain from Return of the King, right? Now the music is all serious and organy.
This is a spider ghost level. Yeah, if I can cheat over here. Because I really don't like dealing with these. You got loose.
Telling you, if you have the source code of this, you really should port this to Android.
I've considered it. I've actually seriously considered it.
Be a good little exercise.
It would, in graphics and input processing. I'm not sure how you would do the controls because.
Well, this is certainly easier than most of the other first-person shooters they would do, because this can be done on a D-pad rather easily. So
right, except that
the sidestep is maybe a little tricky, but
yeah, but I don't know. Not that I've played many first-person shooters on Android, but I just get the impression that just trying to steer by putting your fingers on the thing you're trying to look at is just a big pain in the neck.
Well, First of all, I would naturally support external controllers because that's why I got an Ouya. I finally played my Ouya, by the way.
Oh, you got an Ouya?
Yeah.
Cool.
I told you that, and you said, "Hey, how is it?" And I said, "I didn't know. I didn't have it at the time. It was on order. It finally arrived. A little disappointing because they can't use the Google Store.
They can't?
No.
Why not?
At this point, they didn't. I don't know if I assume it's a licensing deal.
Oh, jeez.
But so all the games I have, I can't use unless I want to rebuy them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they did a few things smart. Like they copy the Xbox Live Arcade model, which every game has to have a demo.
Mm-hmm.
So you can at least try all these games. And the big game they have in there right now is Final Fantasy III. So you want to play your SNES RPG? There you go. I think they have a few other games. I saw, but they're ones already bought. Like Pinball Arcade. I already have Pinball Arcade, and I was actually excited to play it on a big screen with a controller. Although I can do that on the Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd already bought it for Android. And a ton of tables for Android. And I can't use it. Unless I hack the Ouya to have the Google Store on it.
I don't... Yeah, well, if you can install external APKs, it's probably not terribly hard.
Yeah, but doesn't the DRM not work if the store's not there?
That I don't know.
So, yeah, Yeah, so we'll see. I would not be surprised though if the thing actually launches this week in retail. My understanding.
Oh my gosh.
But my understanding is, I would not be surprised if they relent on that and realize that we do have to have the Google Store in there for this to work.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, that's another one of Kim's little Easter eggs.
I think they stole that for Death Keep. I remember they had a lot of guys that would hang in cages from the ceiling. But then they took it one step further, which is as you went past them, the enemies would burst out of them and drop down. So they were like monster spawners, essentially.
Yeah, this is just a bitmap animation.
Yeah, it's nice. So.
Oops.
And the fact that it's a circular spinning cage also helps. The fact that it's a billboard polygon. For those of you playing at home, a billboard polygon
yeah, that's fine.
is a 2D object that you put in 3D space, so it always faces the player to give the appearance of a three-dimensional object. But if you do for something that's naturally, like if you had like a cube there, it wouldn't work because it'd look like the cube was always rotating towards you because, well, it's a two-dimensional object that's always facing you, so it would look kind of odd. But so if you make something that's circular or spinning in 3D, like these gems here, you can't tell it's actually a billboard object and not a 3D object.
Right. Oh, hi there.
Hello, Mr. Ghost.
Oops.
That it's just a sprite stuck in the world at the correct spot.
So here's the door, and there's the key for it right behind us.
Well, wait a minute. Isn't there a gate on the other side? So basically this is like
This is like an exit to something. There's a little maze.
I mean, is there... What does the map say, though? Because it's like... In other words, if that's on both sides by locked gates, then there's no point to the key, right?
Well,
it's a null operation.
I think what
you use a key to get a key.
Yeah, go the long way to get inside. Yikes! Go the long way to get to get over here.
Yes, the spider's strafing.
Yeah, where am I? Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
Anyway, the reason I thought this is yesterday I bought Karateka or Karateka, depending who you are.
Oh,
for Android.
That was an old Apple game, wasn't it?
Yes, and by
Broderbound.
Broderbound, yeah, and Jordan Mechner, aka Prince of Persia guy.
Yeah.
He apparently found the original source code when he was doing the remake of. There was a remake for Live Arcade and Android of Prince of Persia, where it's still basically 2D gameplay, but it's all done 3D, and it's all it's a little more elegant, and like they justify the 3 lives thing by virtue of the fact that you have 3 different characters who make attempts at the castle. So I thought, oh, that's cute. A way to justify just the fact that why do we have 3 lives in video games? Okay, there are actually 3 different suitors attempting to storm the castle.
Have fun storming the castle.
Exactly. So, but this version is actually a remake of the Apple II version. It's an emulator, right down to you can pick do you want the green screen, do you want the RGB screen, or do you want the amber screen? I love the fact they put the amber, because that's the kind of monitor I had for my Apple II. It was a third-party amber monitor. Not because my parents were cheap, but because it looked nicer.
Of the monochrome screens available back in the day, I think amber was my least favorite.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was easier on the eyes. I just couldn't stand the Apple green monitors.
I didn't like the Apple green monitors. I much preferred the IBM green monitors.
Yeah.
They had a different phosphor that had this just lovely emerald hue to it. But apparently that was more expensive. And usually these... Oh, hello. Usually these particular monitors were those IBM 37 something or other terminals that coupled into mainframes. Oh, hi! I didn't see.
So were they actually monitors or were they actually terminals?
They were actually terminals.
Ah, yeah. So
you
couldn't actually use them with another.
No, unfortunately not.
Yeah.
So they also had much longer persistence, so they would like smear.
Not good for playing Rogue, right?
No. Well, great for playing Rogue, not so great for playing Wolfenstein.
Oh. But he emulates the disc sound of the Apple II. That one.
Which one? There were like 2 different models.
Well, the 5.25 inch.
Well, yeah, but there were 2 stepper motor constructions at least that I was aware of. One was, and the earlier one was, and so
I think the second one,
it's
more like it. I still remember just the sound like.
Oh yeah, that's it. Seeking back to 0. Basically, seek backwards 40, and you're bound to land on track 0 because there was no track 0 detect because that switch cost money.
Still, it was still a wonderfully cheap, wonderfully fast disk drive. I couldn't believe why people had Commodore 64s and like, really, this is your disk drive. It's taking you a minute to load this off your disk drive. But it's a really smart one. Yeah, it's really stupid if it's...
Commodore 1541 floppy drive loads data faster than you can type it.
Yeah. But the thing was, that thing had a processor that was actually more powerful than was in the Commodore 64 itself, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a 6502 in there.
Yeah. Which... but it was the slowest thing on the planet. It's like, wow, all those brains in here.
Wow, we should get some of the ex-Commodore people in here because apparently there's a story behind that. I only know it sort of like in.
Well, did you have an Apple II or you have
I was a Commodore guy. I just couldn't justify spending $1,200 for the machine for Apple, especially once the Atari 800 and company were out and. 64K machines were going for sub $600, and they were still asking $1,200 for the Apple II 48K, and it's like, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, true.
But no, the story I heard is that they had done the 1541 drive, and it was all smexy and everything. It was coming out really nicely.
You're doing a Sigma map here.
Yeah. And what they had done was that they had they tuned it for this Commodore 64, and then at the very last minute, management says, oh, it's got to work with the VIC-20 as well. And I went, but the timings are totally different, and it's just not going to work well. He's just like, well, too bad, we're not doing 2 SKUs. Because we're phasing out the 1540. And so they had to like redo the firmware.
Also, VIC-20 basically the same
work on
processor?
both of them. Also, it didn't help that the Commodore 64, every 8 video lines would just go away for 40 microseconds to fetch the next line of video RAM. So that was a minor problem.
There was a certain elegance though to the Apple II.
Pardon me?
Because it was all frame buffer based and everything. So basically, anything you could do in a frame buffer, good.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, the Commodore 64 is a frame buffer as well. You just had to set it up ahead of time. And that was very common back then. Is you had the character cell mode, and then you had the bitmap mode, and the Apple II's bitmap mode was insanely laid out. Because
save a couple gates.
save a couple gates, or actually, it's probably that, but also the story I heard is that at that time the XOR gate chip, the quad XOR gate, was cheaper than the quad NAND gate, which is what he would have used. So he used the cheaper gate, and then they have that weird layout.
Hey, but it gives a cool transition effect, the Venetian blinds effect.
Yeah.
Think of it as like very early pixel swizzling. For the very same reason of like, well, okay. Put these things logically next to each other. Physically next to each other.
Yeah, no. Back in those days, to decide whether or not I was going to seriously consider buying a machine, I would get the programmer's technical reference manual for the machine. I still have. I could go dig it out of my bookshelf right now. I still have the technical reference for the Apple II. And after looking at that, I said, no, I'm not going to bother with this, even though it's very popular. It was also the same way I decided I was never going to bother with the IBM PC, because I bought a book on the 8086, and prior to that my exposure was the 8080 and the 6502, and I said, as dreadful as the 6502 was, the 8086 was worse. So I said, no, not going to bother with it. And I've done almost nothing with the x86 line, at least on an assembly code level.
Well,
my
nowadays
laptop is an x86.
Yeah, nowadays it's not even worth it because now it's all
64-bit stuff now.
Yeah,
I haven't looked into that at all. But I mean, after like
you still
10,
write
20...
x86 code, but then internally it's going to be translated to their own internal 64-bit.
Right.
Yeah, massively optimized, registered out the wazoo kind of thing. So
that was sort of the approach. Oh man, I forgot the name of that company that did a software, sort of a firmware emulation of the x86 that Linus Torvalds worked for a while. But I can't remember the name of it. Somebody will obviously comment on it. God.
Spider Alley.
Fortunately, I'm full up on. Jeez, the frame rate suggests that there's a lot more going on than I can see.
This is kind of like the worst case because you have this long ass hall, right?
Right. Okay, nothing there.
But no, I mean just the elegance of that architecture on the Apple II. It was the expansion slots on that. It's like that was like because you never installed a driver for an expansion device on the Apple II.
No, but. Well, okay. So
it just kind of worked. I was just like, wait a minute. How did we have
No. I think there are some things like the 80 column card that you had to have some sort of client side, application side support.
I don't know. There's certainly enough rogue 80 column cards out there that you didn't. There was definitely no driver installation on this thing, and there certainly wasn't.
Well, there was some onboard firmware for.
Yes, there was firmware for certain type of stuff, but there was obviously things that were invented after the ROMs were set in stone that I didn't have to install drivers for. Like people had CPU accelerators on the thing, where it was just like
really?
you could put a whole CPU on an expansion card. And people put 65816 on there, Z80s on cards and stuff like that.
I remember the Z80s,
and it was just like, wow, it just works. RAM, same thing. And it's like, wow, that was stuff that was giving IBM problems up until the 2000s. It's like, oh, IRQs, you got to get the...
Yeah.
Oh, you can't have these two cards next to each other. Get them...
Because they conflict. Why? Can't you route it yourself? I'm sorry, our switching fabric.
That's why, I mean, I thought that was the norm because that was my first computer, was the Apple IIe. And then, Commodore got the Zorro slots. It just magically worked as well.
Those were pretty good.
And then you get to IBM and it's like, what the IRQ conflict? What the... Or worse, blue screen of death.
Not multi-channel. The bus in the PS2, the IBM PS2.
Yeah, see, there you go. IBM
NCA.
PS2, not the PlayStation. Dude.
That's
IBM
correct.
PS2.
IBM PS2, the one
micro-channel architecture.
That's it. Thank you. Apparently, was a collision avoidance-based bus. And you basically poll and say, okay, do I have the bus? Do I have the bus? Do I have the bus? Is anybody on the bus? Is anybody on the bus? Well, nobody's on the bus. I think I can use the bus. Collision? What do you mean collision? So,
well, but that still worked better than ISA slots. And,
true enough.
PCI.
ISA was pretty much a direct. Sort of very very S100y in that respect. It was just basically the address lines leading into the CPU.
Yeah, that's
with no logical translation at all.
It's really weird.
So, you need okay. So you've got a 4K. This board has 4K of memory on it. Where do you want to locate it in the overall 64K address space?
Yeah.
Flip the dip switches over here.
Yeah, it's like
jump up. There we go.
They got a lot of life out of the Apple IIe. Then when they started like, oh, graphics mode, we'll just add more memory on the 80 column card. Boom, double high res. And now we can play King's Quest.
No, they did. There was a lot of good stuff that was done on the Apple II.
Woz is quite a brilliant guy. So
quite brilliant. I remember hearing a story. Apparently, Woz used to hang out at Atari.
Well, there's way more of that story. I think we might even told this on the broadcast about Breakout.
Oh, so you have heard that story?
Yeah,
okay,
I think we told this on here about
No, I don't think we told this on air. But you might. I don't know. You may remember more details. I heard it from Al Alcorn, but.
Oh, okay. Well. Ooh.
Yeah, he was giving a talk and just like told the story of
Well, there's been many variations of it, but I think Woz finally came clean on it with the official version after Steve Jobs' death.
Oh,
which is like they had a falling out over this whole incident, which was Steve Jobs was an employee for Atari, but apparently he wasn't a real engineer.
No.
He kind of BS'd his way around into being an engineer, and then he'd go home and ask Woz
to do it,
do the actual work. And one of the projects was Breakout. Breakout was an precursor to Arkanoid, one of the Atari's big early hit arcade games. Paddle game, break the blocks, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And this was all done with discrete logic. There's no CPU in this thing, so this is all just AND gates and NAND gates and
right.
Individual components that nowadays would be a few lines of code, and there's a story behind that too. So the trick on these games was, okay, it's all discrete logic. So you go down to Radio Shack, you buy your little chips, and you put them out on breadboard, and you wire them up, and hopefully you can get
powered up, and you've got to
get a display on the screen, and then get it to do something. Pong was the earliest version of this, and Breakout was sort of like solo Pong with a goal of breaking bricks.
Yeah, so break all the bricks out to clear the level.
So they had the game. So they had the game worked out at Atari. And I think it was using like a couple hundred chips, which is every chip that you can get reduced translates into thousands of dollars for the company because you have to buy the chips, you have to install them. Installing them takes a lot of things, increase the complexity.
Yeah.
Any one of the connections on any one of those chips, as somebody who's done wire wrap in college, it's not fun. Trying to figure out which one of these connections is bad. So every chip is worth a certain amount of money in terms of production costs, and you multiply this over the number of things that are going to go out. It's huge. So they gave Steve Jobs, a task of getting this down to as few chips as possible, and they gave him a goal of I think it was anything you can get below 50 we'll give you like some obscene amount of money, like per chip.
I heard it was something like $1,000 per chip below, like 40 or 30 chips
50,
or something like yeah.
So
he hands it off to Woz.
So yeah, he did it to Woz, and he told him it's like, they'll pay me something like $100 per chip under 50.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so Woz is doing it, and he gets it down to something I think it's like 34.
I heard it was like 28. So
34,
ridiculously
28.
Small.
Yeah, it was like well below what Atari had expected to pay. So Jobs turns this in. He gets paid the bonus.
Right.
Jobs then goes back to Wozniak and says, they reneged on the deal. They only gave us a bonus of X. I'll split it with you. And he pocketed the rest for himself. So he gave him like literally like 10% of what Jobs got for the thing.
Yep, he's a marketer.
Yes. Jobs found about this many years later.
I mean, Woz found out.
Woz found out many years later, and they didn't speak to each other for a couple of years after that. He was just furious with him because, like, at that point, both of them were worth tens of millions of dollars just from their Apple stock. But it was the whole principle of the thing that he would, not only was he getting him to do his work for him, he lied about the bonus to him twice. First the amount he was originally going to get, and then the amount he finally got. Jobs got the final amount. The really funny part of the story is they gave Jobs the bonus, but they didn't use Woz's layout in the actual arcade game because
nobody understood it.
Nobody could figure out how it worked. They said, we can see it works, but we don't understand how it works. Therefore, we don't know if there'll be some catastrophic failure after 100 games or something that puts porn up on the screen or something. I think it says "F you Atari" or something when you reach the 100th level or something. So
I think it was more along the lines of, if these machines break in the field, there's nobody will be able to diagnose them. So no, they didn't use that design.
Yeah, I mean, if something broke in the field, they could literally just say, well, replace the chip that has the bad connection and it'll magically work again. We don't understand why. But that's kind of funny. So, but that whole experience of making Breakout was why Woz put AppleSoft Basic in the Apple II, because he remembers this little exercise. He said, I would be great if I could just do this all on the CPU in code. And so he said, basically any command he needed suddenly got added to AppleSoft Basic to put in his Breakout. And that's why Breakout's like the example that would come with your on disk as one of the example programs of how to use AppleSoft Basic when you got an Apple II. Complete with the code. It's like,
he added commands so that he could write Breakout.
Yeah.
Oh, good for him.
All the graphic commands and all the sound commands and all that stuff that are in AppleSoft Basic.
Good for him.
Are because, like, hey, I want to be able to write my own Breakout in less than X number of lines of code. And so that's why Breakout's in there. And that's how I learned to program.
I wish more engineers would do that. It's like, I have a particular... I'm not here to just design an API. I'm here to accomplish a specific goal.
Well, yeah, I do that all the time. When I make an API, I always do that because it's like, first thing I try to do is like, well, can I do this? Can I make this? Of course, that doesn't necessarily mean that the artist will want to do will want to use it, but yeah. So yeah, that is the whole. That's why I was thinking. It's like, if you report this to Android, it'd be a wonderful learning exercise for somebody.
Yeah. Oops! I pushed. Opening a door. Shooting spiders.
Does Studio 3DO own the rights to this, or does EA own the rights to this? Because they were the publisher.
EA was the publisher, but I don't know who actually owns it. And if Tripp still owns it, he kept some of the stuff when 3DO folded. He kept some of it,
like Twisted or something.
I don't know.
Twisted would be one I would actually think he would have kept, just because he sees his name is on there as like the guide or the
guiding principle.
His name is in the credits or something. It's like,
his name's in the credits of this game too. I mean,
yeah, but it had some kind of smarmy sounding thing in Twisted. It was sort of like, our guiding light or something. Not quite that bad, but almost like that. You checking your keys?
Yeah, checking my keys. It's that. All right. So.
Would a HUD have killed you?
A HUD would have gotten in the way. Ah. Okay.
How about an option for a HUD in Monster Manor 2.0?
I think we'll consider that, especially since every display, even cheap ass cell phones, have higher resolution than this machine. Hello. Okay, is anybody in there going to kill me?
Now see if you just made this. So if you did this on a widescreen display, you'd have plenty of room on the sides for the controls.
True.
Strafe and turn could be, on either side.
That's probably how I would do it. Is I would put it like on the extrema of the display, so that the center remains unsullied, so to speak. Ah!
Unsmudged?
Yeah, unsmudged.
Hey, there's a talisman. Okay, now, don't get greedy. How's your health?
Health is okay.
See, this would have been a great thing of like, pick up the talisman, boom, those cages burst open, and you got a little hell beast to fire. There's even a nice sound when you do it, too.
Alright, so... Wow.
So, yeah.
Is this one of Stefan's? I don't know who did this one. It sure feels like one of Stefan's.
Or just Stefan these days.
I don't know. He's kind of famous now. He's kind of got his own thing going. So I'm going to preserve keys. I'm going to conserve keys. I don't think it's as important on this one as it is on the next one.
So when you win the game, do you get an FMV video?
Yes.
Ah.
He said cryptically.
Is it just this? Is it the same as the opening, just played backwards? Or
no, no, it's just very, very brief.
Look, the talisman now reforms, and you go back out the window and you fly the other way.
No, that's the Alone in the Dark ending. No, it's very, very brief because we didn't have time to do anything super, super wonderful.
Yeah, because there's been a lot of discussion on the 3DO forum. 3DO0 forum. By the way, I had to say something about that.
Oh, yeah?
I love the fact that there's a fan site. I can't stand that it's called 3DO0 or 3D0.
That's right. It was never 3D0.
Yeah.
It was always 3DO.
I see people...
Audio, video, radio, 3DO.
Yeah.
That was the entire conceit.
I love that there's a fan site, but I don't know why they chose that name. If that's, just a misunderstanding or if they were being snarky.
It's possible that 3DO was taken, so they took 3D0. Yeah.
Because, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't intentional they did this, but that name is like literally fingernails on a chalkboard to anybody who was around when the 3DO came out. And the reason for that is this was like the taunt name that people of other consoles would use when referring to the 3DO. This is the 3D0. It's like, oh, it's a failure. It's the 3D0, not the 3DO. Just like you can guess some of the ones that were there for, like, say, the Jaguar. Just
Jaguar,
barely.
I think was one of them.
Yeah, you're off by one letter.
Oh.
Or Jag-Whore, I think, was another one. It's like, they're pretty mean. 3DO, there wasn't much you could do with it other than 3D0. So it's kind of like the taunt name. So whenever I see it, and I see people use it in reviews, they'll just like, I get that if they've read that and they just read it incorrectly, that they read that as a 0 and they thought, well, look, there's already one number in the name, so what? Yeah.
Oop, and there's one left. Is there anything over here that's helpful? No, there's not. Okay, run away.
Right. You could pick a corner there somewhere, dude.
Yeah, but what I need is ammo.
Yes, I know, but I'm saying, there's ghosts down those 2 holes, so you might want to check one of those side holes.
Or I could just go where I know there's ammo.
You might want to get some health, too, since you're going to be stabbed very quickly here.
Oh, wait a minute.
Are you going back towards the village?
You guys stay back there.
Ooh.
Oh, I go.
Pro tip there. Ghosts can't phase through solid objects in this game. Let's just assume they're iron gates, right? So iron, I guess spectrals can't do well against iron if too human is to be believed or something. But yeah, so people say 3D0. It just
So that just grates personally.
Yeah, I mean, I understand how people can do it if they misread it in a magazine, and I'm sure many magazines misprinted it. Certainly, any game any game magazine that referred to it in the sense of retro, I see it all the time as 3D0. Most of them at the time, 3DO themselves would correct them on that. But then again, game magazines were never good for technical details of any kind. So, like, I remember when M2 was being discussed, And I saw more than one magazine I saw referred to MIT mapping instead of MIP mapping.
Oh, gosh.
And
obviously this was a phone conversation over a dirty line.
Well, yeah. And the funny thing was, it wasn't just they got the letters wrong. Instead of, you know, P, they got T. Mm-hmm. One magazine even decided, because they have to sound intelligent, to actually have a story as to why it's called MIT mapping. It's like, well, it's invented by MIT, Media Lab. And it's like, no. A, that's not called MIT mapping. B, it doesn't stand for MIT. MIP mapping, guys, is Latin.
Multiple image.
Multium parvum.
Oh, really? Okay, that I didn't know.
Many things in one spot.
Oh.
Yeah. Right. So this is what we have Wikipedia for nowadays, but this is the days before there was Wikipedia, before there was really much of a World Wide Web, is when the 3DO was out.
Some guy sitting around going, how can I, some guy at, what is it, Silicon Graphics going, how can I make this as obtuse as possible? I know. Yeah. I'll use Latin.
Yes. But yeah, so when I see 3D0, it's just like, that's just, like I said, nails on the chalkboard. It literally I just stop every time I see that. It's just like,
oh man, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's like my eyes can skim over anything except that. It's just like, I just draw into that 0.
It's not round enough. It's not an O.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you could fault that with and then probably that's how it turned out. Somebody, you know, just couldn't read in the font, couldn't tell if it was a 0 or an O. So,
how did I leave this behind?
Wow.
All right, you
picked up a gem, and then when you pick up the gem, it's like, go spawn. If it were a modern game,
yeah, it's just like, you just check the ventilator shaft, and now a necromorph is going to spawn out of it.
Hey, let's not go. Well, what do you mean? It's a shaft. It can, you can transit between.
Hello.
Yeah, you're. Well, now you're just taunting. You're playing rope-a-dope with the ghost. Robo-ghost.
What's wrong with that? It's trying to kill me.
Oh, yeah. But
stabbity stab.
Back to the FMV thing I was really trying to talk about was because on the 3.0 forum, there's a discussion like, why is there such a wide range of quality of FMV in 3DO games? Okay, first of all, not unique to 3DO by a long shot.
No.
And yeah, a lot of reasons for that. And I'm guessing this is being one of the earliest games is like you're using one of the earliest Cinepack compressors on the market. Mm-hmm. And so the answer to that is many. One is like, what codec are they using?
Right.
2, do they have somebody who knows how to use the tool?
How to tune
3,
the codec, yeah.
Is the tool any good? Mm-hmm. Does it have any feedback? I'm guessing like the very first ones were just like straight ports of like whatever the Cinepack Corporation gave you, a straight C port.
Basically, if you had a 25 megahertz 68020 with 16 megabytes of RAM, you were considered really, really fortunate. You had a monster machine. That was just an amazingly powerful system. And there was no way you were going to do real-time anything. You could do real-time video capture, uncompressed, just barely. But like real-time feedback of the codecs, no.
Right. And not in real that it's like it could take you, if you had like a 1-minute clip, it's probably going to take you like a half hour to compress it on your Mac.
More like 1 minute. Okay, half an hour. Yeah.
And the funny thing is
I wonder where the exit is.
Yeah, and that ratio doesn't change much as time has gone on. In the sense that codecs now take up more and more CPU time, more and more resources. You're compressing HD video nowadays instead of standard def. And, if you want high quality, you actually do have to spend that amount of time to compress something. You do have to spend like a 30-to-1 ratio often to compress something. Nice of them to all line up and file like that, though.
Yes. Now I'm out of stuff.
But luckily you can close the door, so they're stuck.
Okay.
I suppose you can run past them, right?
Well, you could. They just pursue you.
Yeah, but I mean, if the exit right's there,
you could get it. You could get them.
Oh, but the Guardian, you still have to get the Guardian, right?
Yeah.
But is there ammo there if you can run past?
I'm looking for.
No, I mean in that room that they're in, is there ammo?
I didn't see. You can't tell by looking
at the map. Ah.
Oh, jeez, look at that.
Gee, you could have done something, couldn't you?
Jeez, I'm going to go all the way back
Yeah.
because I don't know.
But yeah, even on the last game, I was brought in to fix the FMV quality.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason this happens is because if you use, the main problem is if in video games is if you're on a unique piece of hardware,
mm-hmm.
that means you have to have your own custom compressor, compression software,
right,
to output it. If it doesn't take the absolute standard format that you can get anywhere else, and which means they're going to do it as simply as possible, which means a command line tool
Yep.
that just barely gets the job done.
Yep.
So
that was how it was. That was how it was.
There we go.
That was how it was on 3D
so
as well.
If it looks good
enough
for whatever you're compressing,
yeah,
you're probably not going to do many more cases other than that.
No.
If it's an in-house tool. Sadly,
yeah. No, there was stuff. I mean, I didn't like the look of Cinepack. I didn't like its ordered dither look, but it's all we had. Duck came like a year later.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody really used it, and I said, "Oh, this looks much better." But everyone kept using Cinepack. I think because it came free with the dev kit.
Well, Duck. Not a lot of people use Duck. Horde is famously the opening videos to the Horde are famously done in Duck.
Right, but that was the only one I saw it in was Horde.
No, I think pretty much Crystal Dynamics did like most of their games after that with it.
Oh, okay.
Because they have some nice full screen. You can definitely tell that a lot of people were using that, or they were using things like that one that 3DO specifically had made available, which was Easy Flicks. I think one of like the last. Well, there's Easy Flicks and Easy Squeeze. Easy Squeeze was the one I think used on Twisted on the black and white stuff.
Okay, yeah.
And Easy Flicks was their full screen thing. I think they ended up using that on some of the American Laser later games.
Okay.
And you can tell, because somebody said, because that was one of the things that was brought in 304. It's like, why is there such a huge jump in quality between Mad Dog McCree 1, which had to be done in Cinepack because it's so early, and I want to say like either Mad Dog McCree 2 or one of the absolute last ones they did, like Shootout at Old Tucson or Last Bounty. I can't remember which one it was, Last Bounty Hunter or Shootout at Old Tucson. And it's just different codecs. The tools got better. People got better using the tools they had. I mean, like I said, I worked at game companies where we've had in-house codecs, and it's like it's great for compressing the company logo because that was probably the only thing when they released it, they compressed it with it. But then you release, it's like, hey, I've got this scene in a graveyard at night, and there's a slow camera pan across the moon, and wow, look at all those macro blocks.
Yeah,
Cinepack called; they want their compression back. I think I even said that to one of the engineers once. It's like, take a look at this. Doesn't this look like early 90s Cinepack to you? Like, well, yeah, sure. If you're doing dark scenes with slow pans, yeah, that'll happen. It's like, well, okay, great. Then don't tell me I have to use this codec.
Yeah. In making these videos, I've spent a little time looking at FFmpeg because you kind of have to because you got to transcode everything. And the number of options just for H.264 for tuning it are massive.
Yeah.
I mean, there's dozens of them.
And that's the beauty. And all these codecs at their heart have a zillion parameters that you can tweak. But how many of them get exposed in the tool you're using is, like I said, if it's an in-house tool, the program's probably not going to expose all of them. Or bother with things like, oh, can I gather error information on a first pass to use it to optimize a second pass, stuff like that. And I had that on a game where we had to do a music video, and it was like the worst thing you could ever feed to a compression algorithm. It was all these multiple transparent layers moving in different directions on top, sliding slowly across different directions across the. It almost would have been easier to do it like in real time, like do the individual layers and then composite them in real time to get the effect. Yeah. But we fed to the in-house codec, and it just like cried. I mean, it was just like we couldn't get. And the other thing was we were on a huge space constraint on the GameCube. We literally had like 10 megabytes left for the GameCube version of this thing. And I just said, we can't do it with this codec. And I said, go license, just find somebody who has ported to the GameCube a copy of DivX or XVID or something, and we'll use that. And they're like, well, no, we have... And literally I got pushback from the engineer who wrote the codec we were trying to use, who said, no, I've got this data chart that proves that this is better than those guys and for error and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, here, let me show you what I can compress here. Let me show you a DivX version I did in 3 minutes with a free piece of tool online. Which, and it's like, well, sure, that, you know. And, you know, it's like, it's nothing against his skill as an engineer or anything. It's like, but, you know, something like DivX has a bunch of free tools online that have been pounded on by thousands of hackers trying to fit their, you know, Dragon Ball Z animes onto a single CD. Yeah. So they have optimized the bejesus out of this thing. They have found every bit to squeeze out of this, how to make everything look good, how, you know, all this stuff that, you know, this guy may have spent a year working on it, but that's still only one engineering year on it, as opposed to, you know, thousands of people on the internet banging on this, you know, just to archive their video collection and make it look, or, you know, archive. Oh, let's archive.
Yeah. Sure. Put it on their NAS.
Right, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe you should get the...
We're in the money.
Yeah. I hope this makes you feel rich. The richest man in the cemetery. Oh
my God, it's a big room. Look at that big room.
And you're nowhere near... there's the exit.
There's the exit. So yeah, so I've got some cleaning out yet to do.
So yeah, and that's what we ended up doing. It's like for the GameCube version, we licensed DivX. It worked like a champ. It fit all in that. I mean, it was like a 2-minute music video. And we had to fit into like 10 megs. It was just like no way. And it looked great when we got done with it. Yeah, I was super impressed with this thing when we were done with it, and they were amazed too, because they thought they were gonna have to like replace the whole music video with like still shots or something, like it was frickin' SNES game or something like that. So yeah,
DivX was didn't DivX inform the design of H.264?
They're all from the kind of the same genre thing. I think originally, if I remember correctly, DivX starts off as Microsoft. One of a Microsoft technology that people kind of hacked up. They would like use Microsoft's DLL and then hack it up. And then that sort of like spawned into VC1 and then H.264 kind of are basically based on the same technology.
I see.
So yeah, so it compresses really well. And if you throw a tool, I can't even think of what the tool is anymore for compressing. It's a free tool. It has that wonderful interface of like you can see the compression, you know, the source and the compression, and it'll let you do multiple passes and let you plug in different codecs. But it's like it was one of those cases where it's like, you know, you're going to waste more engineering time trying to make this thing look halfway decent than if you just license the you know common solution. You know, it's like, please get the not invented here out of your head. You know. Or not invented by me, you know. And so, I mean, that's part of, so, you know, and DivX, as a codec, you know, when people first got it, it was pretty crap, but then people figured out how to tweak it, and they figured out, you know, how to make stuff work with it. So, and figured out how to have tools that had feedback loops so you could see where the stuff was going. Because that was the thing I ran on the last game, where I was trying to make these videos. These had to be HD videos. They had to look good, but they had to be under a certain size because we have bandwidth restrictions. And they couldn't do it. And the main reason was the parameters didn't make much sense to the technical artist who was doing it. And I couldn't blame her. You know her, actually. You actually know the person.
She's no slouch.
Yeah, she actually does code herself and everything, but the parameters were sort of counterintuitive, where she's like, wait, it's getting worse as I'm doing this. And it's like, okay, well, try doing the exact opposite of what you think you should be doing. And sure enough, that was one of those things where it's like, yes, give it less bandwidth for this, and suddenly it actually compresses better in terms of the look. And so, you know, it's just one of those weird things.
Yeah, it's just such a... so many different things that you can like fiddle with. yeah, we'll take this one.
And and also part of the problem was she was also running into other issues where it's like, yeah, she didn't realize she was hitting the bandwidth wall. So it was looking also bad because it was stuttering, because the bandwidth was too much. And so that's why why you have such a wide range of video quality on names. Like, people have to get used to the tools. The tools themselves have to get better. The very first ones were just straight ports.
Yep.
And the data also on a lot of games was probably a straight port. Because we said, why does Rebel Assault look like shit? I said, I bet anything Rebel Assault is using the exact same files they use on the PC and or Mac.
Yeah.
Which meant they were limited to like 150K and whatever you could do on the lowest common denominator
1X.
CD-ROM PC that you had out there. So
PC. Thanks, guys. Oh, we only have 1 second resolution to address sectors on the CD-ROM drive, and although you can actually address down to 1/75th of a second, which I found out when I was working on CDTV. Anyway, exit.
Stage left.
What do you got to tell us, Les?
Did you survive some close calls, my poor fool? Moments you thought would be your last? Well, soon those memories will be the happy ones from your visit here.
So the next one is a very key poor level. Basically, the economy of keys is such that if you don't grab everything you can before you start opening doors, you will run into a dead end.
You're gonna pre-play it? We previously baked a playthrough
yeah,
at 450 degrees.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna pre-play that before we jump into that. It's like we've been edited. Okay.
We could put in some FMV, just record the video and use it, insert it wherever.
Sure.
Here's an example. Like, if you think it's a bit boring in the middle of the video or something, while you're slogging down the hallway, here, for comparison's sake, here's Easy Flicks. Here's Cinepack. Here's Cinecrap. I was actually surprised that Soccer Kid uses Cinepack, because like I always thought that since 3DO published that, they would have,
showcase their
I'm pretty sure Killing Time was probably like one of the first Easy Flicks things. Catapult. Woohoo.
Yep, they clearly used the fast boot, whatever, on this. Yeah, so we're loading up the beginning of Killing Time as a comparison of...
I'm off the rocky coast of Maine, heading toward the island of Matinicus, alone. My Egyptology professor, Dr. Hargrove, was always recounting...
Yeah, I think this is
They
Easy
were
Flicks.
scarfing... The Prelinger archives had just become available, hadn't they? Because that's where they got a lot of this stuff.
The clock supposedly...
I love the fact that the film grain kind of helps hide the compression artifacts.
That's true, yeah.
Whatever Hargrove found, mysterious...
But that kind of dissolved there would just be a nightmare for Cinepack with the pixel shatter effect or whatever they have there. Pixel dissolve.
left off. It has led me to Eris Tess Conway's island estate.
So it's nearly full screen.
With the occult. Her greed drew her toward...
Lots of motion.
A debonair two-bit smuggler. In its heyday...
So yeah, this was one designed by... I'm blanking on his name.
Deserted for decades. Tess and her
Basically,
friends...
take advantage of all these strengths of the 3DO hardware. Use as much of the 3DO hardware as he could for like color space expansion,
First glimpse
conversion.
of the house. The weather's getting worse, but I'm almost ashore. I fear my life may be in danger, but I have come prepared. That's strange. My watch has stopped.
Yeah. So that was about...
And then another one I'm pretty sure is using Easy Flicks is the opening to Battle Sport.
What did Snowjob use?
That had better have been Easy Flicks.
Okay.
If that's late, unless they had for some reason, because you had to transition to like the what's that QuickTime VR thing before it was QuickTime VR that they have in there, where it's like it's missed, but you can look around in like the virtual sphere kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it actually predates QuickTime VR. So.
Yes, you can look around the sphere.
Trip,
Which is
if you
actually
want
a
to,
cube map.
to have, well, it's a little late to try and enforce that patent, but prior art. But yeah, it was like mist with a cube with a spherical map or whatever. But yes, this is like that game. This is the spiritual successor to Monster Manor.
Yep.
Sort of.
Sort of, yeah. Actually, I wish I could get the art designer for this,
which was
Kim
previously
Tempest.
which was previously going to be called Time to Die.
Yeah.
But apparently, I don't know if that name was already taken because they had a contest at the studio to rename the game, and this is what they came up with.
Yeah.
I don't know. They didn't say who, if anybody came up with it. Probably some marketing person. But my suggestion for the title was Mobster Manor.
Nice.
Because it's like, well, it's what it is. Essentially, it's Monster Manor with
mobsters.
Yeah. So it's like, gee, I wonder what the sequel to.
Yeah, so you were saying the 3D Zero, forum was discussing the various flavors of killing time out there. There was no successful ending to the 3DO version of Killing Time, was there not?
My understanding, yes. Well, no, there is a successful ending.
Well, there's the one, we're kind of spoiling it here, but you collect all the things and you destroy all the other things, and when you destroy the last thing, then you get this video which makes it look like you failed. And
no, you get, well, no, depending on what you do in the game, you get different videos. One is you're trapped in the manor.
Yeah.
Another is, I think, there's another one. It's been forever, and I haven't. Sadly, I can't look at the thread right now. I could actually, but there's a video where like Tess kills the main bad guy who's been following you.
Yeah,
the roided out guy with the the
where
different
Tess
implements
kills you,
on
right, and then.
But you actually are allowed to. I think there's actually a. I don't. So
I've got the one where you're trapped in the manor.
Yeah. But you have to like if you don't successfully get all the pieces of her jar. Her jars.
Yes.
So her soul can be free.
Yeah.
You're trapped in the manor, apparently.
Huh. Because I thought I had them all.
Yes. But apparently there's a bug in the version that so sometimes you can get trapped. There is an ending where it's like you're leaving the island. There is an ending.
Okay.
Now, there's also two versions of Killing Time in the sense of there was two 3D releases. There was like a buggy release.
Really?
Yes. There's like one that's like with a black disc and one with a red disc, I think. I'm not sure which one. I probably the buggy one. Since I probably got mine. Well, actually, that copy is probably one I got from the dumpsters at 3DO.
Oh, yeah.
You want to talk? Oh, you want to talk about the dumpster diving?
Sure.
At 3DO?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was pretty popular at 3DO because one night I found out that 3DO had a mail order. I didn't find out that 3DO had a mail order business that you could just write directly at 3DO and buy the games. Mm-hmm. Well, one night I was dumping something outside the building and I found an entire dumpster full of 3DO games that apparently have been returns to either the mail order thing or I don't know if they were returns directly from people like GameStop or whatever. But they were returns. But most of these games were perfectly good. They were just returned for whatever reason. Right. I guess 3DO would just write them off or whatever, throw them in the dumpster, and that's it. But like I said, these were perfectly good games. Some of them still in their shrink wrap. And so it became a habit of me and a few other people
to fish them out.
We figured out like what days they would do this, and we would just go and fish them out. And I would keep a stack in a cabinet, a metal cabinet, like right behind me. And there were some really good games in there too. So, and probably the most returned game was Killing Time, and it's probably because there was
really? I
two
would have
versions.
thought it would be JPI.
No. Oh, no. No, I rarely saw JPI. But anyway, so...
Well, JPI was the pack-in, but, I mean, so there was nowhere to return it.
Well, JPI was, after? Because JPI was not the pack... was going to be the pack-in, but remember, Crash and Burn was the pack-in.
No. So here's the sequence. So JPI was supposed to be the pack-in, but it took, like, 8 months too long. So Crash and Burn became the pack-in.
Right.
Then JPI finally got published standalone. And the sales tanked because it was awful.
Oh, the game's playing itself.
So then they finally convinced Panasonic to make it the pack-in for like the cost-reduced whatever or something.
No, for the FC10.
I know the FC10, but for a while it was a pack-in, and they
my
said,
FC10 came with Gex.
And they said, "Hey, Jurassic Park Interactive sold 50,000 units." This is like, yes, and how many of those were the pack-in? So
yeah. But yeah, because my pack-in on the FC10 that I got was Gex. So
okay.
So I would.
There's one I'd like to see again.
Oh, okay. It's probably one of the more memorable ones. To pull some Gex cred anyway. But yeah, the Killing Time was far and away the most popular return that ended up in the dumpster behind 3DO, and it was probably because there was a glitch in the first pressing. They pressed, and you could apparently just write into 3DO and get it. I don't know if you had to send. I hope you had to send on the disc because it was good. Yeah, I got this glitch copy. Yeah, or at least the receipt or something. So there was a lot of returns on that, and so when people would come visit 3DO, and we'd if somebody's visiting, you'd always can we give them some games? And they used to go to the admin, but they stopped doing that. And the people just come to me because I had a cabinet full of them. The second most popular, dubious distinction, was Doom.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
Zadnost was in there quite a bit too, which was great because that had a free controller with it.
Ah, yes.
And it's a really good one too. It's a
Logitech
pad too.
Ooh.
It's a really good one.
Yeah.
So God knows I have probably, or used to, I've over the years I've kind of given them away. I used to have dozens of those Logitech pads. Even if I didn't have the Zadnost game, I would have I would have the pad. I didn't keep many of the many of them had damaged boxes because they're outer boxes, so I just had the jewel case. Luckily, most of these had a jewel case with them. But yeah, I pretty much saw almost every title in my collection that, not every title. I bought a lot of them outright because before I had this 3DO, but a lot of the lesser known titles, the oddball titles in my collection came from the dumpster.
Huh.
And the other half came from when 3DO cleaned out its library of titles that they got. That they had 3DO had this requirement that they had to have X number of copies in their vault of any title, and so I think they had this every disc that got pressed, 3DO always got 10 copies, I think, at least. And so these of course took up a lot of space because there were a lot of 3DO titles worldwide, and so one day late in 3DO's lifetime, they just put them all out in the cafeteria and let everybody in there and take. And so I got some nice rare ones. There were some that was I know now are rare, and I know I saw them there. I was I didn't pick it up because it looked like crap. Ones that sell a lot on eBay. There was that Alfred Hitchcock, a Japanese Alfred Hitchcock title that fetches a pretty penny. There's some Korean titles that are just worth a ton of money.
I remember there were a lot of Asian pressings in there because
I
didn't read Japanese,
but
or
I have
any Asian
Japanese
languages.
versions of most every, and then a lot of these games are totally playable. I mean, most Japanese games work on a 3DO period, but I mean they're completely playable even if you don't speak Japanese.
Although there was no region coding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Another 3DO benefit, but sometimes they'd use the kanji font, which didn't exist on the North American consoles, and then they wouldn't work. Very few. There's only 3 or 4 I think that applies to. Most of the Asian ones are totally playable. Even if you don't speak the language, because they're just the American version. The version I have, all my relatives have Japanese versions of things like Soccer Kid and Starfighter, just because I had those titles available. Starfighter was another one that showed up a lot in the dumpster. I think it's because 3DO studio and a lot of people mail ordered it, that they had a lot of copies of that they just threw out. And these were perfectly good copies. They just threw out. A lot of the studio ones would show up in there. But every so often you get, other publishers.
Did 3DO only mail order their own stuff or everybody's stuff?
They must have done other people too, but certain games I never saw. I don't think I ever saw an EA game in there, in the dumpster. So they were acting as distributor, I guess, maybe for some of the smaller titles some, not smaller titles, but smaller labels that weren't invested in publishing 3DO as much. I would say Quarantine was probably another one of those I would see in there. Some of the Interplay titles. But yeah, it was that was, and a lot of these were really good titles. And a lot of 3DO titles. So it was Captain Quasar, Battle Sport, a lot of Battle Sports, which was a great one just to hand out to people because it's a great title. Oh god! Plus a zillion copies of Maps of Death.
Oh wow!
So Return Fire, Maps of Death showed up a lot too in there.
Wow.
So
yeah, we'll have to cover Return Fire at some point.
Yes, we most definitely will,
because we both used to work for that guy too. Well, thank you all for joining us through this somewhat haphazard installment.
Dual wielding.
Yeah. And again, thanks very much, and we'll see you next time.